Maybe after 5 more years, I'll figure out how to work all this stuff. I'll unmute my mic. I'll stop putting stuff on loop. But what the hell? Let's go. We're back for round two. This is going to be our look at college football, Ohio State, Youngstown State. We're going to talk about briefly, obviously, being based here in Youngstown. We do want to talk about the Penguins. They had a huge victory this past weekend, and we're obviously going to get into plenty of the Ohio State Buckeyes and college football as a whole here. So, Greg Kirchner, Justin Coffin. We're going to get into that right now. I do want to start with the Youngstown State Penguins just because they had an unbelievable upset win this past weekend. They go into number 9 ranked Illinois State, knock them off 40-35 to get to 4-3. That's a huge win for YSU, who will now go home to play Murray State before taking on the number 1 team in the country after that. But if the Penguins can get through their final 5 games there and, hopefully only get through with 1 loss. I think they're definitely a playoff team, but we shall see what they do. But either way, huge victory for the Youngstown State Penguins. Do want to give a shout out to Bo Brungard, who we've mentioned a couple times on this show. He was the FCS Stats Perform National Player of the Week. 328 passing yards, 200 rushing yards, so a total of 528 total yards and 5 touchdowns for the Penguins. So just some unbelievable stuff there. He is a Springfield high school grad, and his dad, obviously, a former Youngstown State quarterback. So well done, Bo Brungard. Great job. I have no idea where Curry College is in Division III, but wanted to share this too. I mean, my God, look at this kid, Monty Quinn, 20 carries, 522 rush yards, 7 touchdowns. That's some unbelievable stuff there by Bo Brungard and Monty Quinn. So wanted to give those 2 guys a shout out this weekend. So well done by them. So speaking of great performances, let's go to the number 1 team in all of college football right now. That is the Ohio State University Buckeyes. They are the defending national champions. They moved to 7-0 with a dominating 34-0 performance in Madison, Wisconsin, to shut out the Badgers. They moved to 7-0 on the season, as I said. Offense, kind of like, they're doing well, but they don't have to do a ton because the defense is so elite. So the offense, as you can see the numbers up there on the screen, 431 yards a game. That's still pretty damn good. That's 36th best in all of college football, which is 136 FBS teams. They're scoring 36.4 points a game, which is 23rd overall. Passing yards, 280 per game, which is 22nd. And rushing yards per game, 152, which is 71st. Defense, though, overall, based on yards per game, is 217. I believe Oklahoma is number 1 at like 209. But the most important stat is 5.86 points per game. That is number 1 in the country. That is number 1 in the last 25 years through 7 games. They're only allowing 131 yards through the air, which is 3rd a game, and rushing yards, they're only allowing 85.6 yards per game, which is 9th best in the country. Can't rush on them, can't pass on them, can't score on them. Greg, you've seen this defense live several times this year. Your thoughts let's start with the defense. Your thoughts on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have enough superlatives to talk about what this defense is doing. Obviously, the Wisconsin is not a good offense at all and had a pretty vanilla game plan. Kind of played right into our strengths, but still to be able to hang a 0, it doesn't really matter who you're playing. That is really hard to do, and to be able to essentially consistently hold teams under 10 points, with the exception of Illinois, is truly unbelievable. And just the we've talked about Matt Patricia and how and just how much the players have responded to his coaching and his system. And I thought the coolest thing about that defensive performance, and we were kind of there till the end, was how locked in everyone. We had a lot of the backups in on that last possession, but how locked in all those starters were. On that last series as Wisconsin was moving the ball down the field. And when we got that fourth down stop, how the sideline erupted. I saw Caleb Downs out on the field, and just the pride that these guys take and what they do and what the whole unit does, and hanging that zero for the second time this year. But obviously the first time was Grambling. It's a little better to do it against a Big Ten team. Right. It just means so much. And they're just so hungry. They're so hungry, but they're together and they're a unit.
And this team does not look complacent at all.
No.
You think like a team might have a little letdown. They know Wisconsin's having a down year. You could hear the chants in the crowd. We were there, and you could hear Fire Fickle and like the boos and stuff like that for on some of the possessions. But like, you're going into Wisconsin, which is a proud football history lore there. It's a great stadium, great environment. And even if fans are slightly a little bit down, slightly is probably an understatement. They're real down on this team and the coaching staff right now. But still, you have to go out and make the plays. Like, they're not just like missing a tackle and letting guys go for 20, 30 yards. Everything is cleaned up. Everything is pinned up, buttoned up. There is very few flaws. I'm not saying this team is perfect by any means, but this defense is about as close to perfect as you could be.
Yeah. It just comes from the top. We've talked about it all year, how it starts with Coach Day and kind of filters down to the staff and the players, and just how focused this team is. Because we've said it, you said it. We just don't, knock on wood, we just don't trip up in these games that we should go out and dominate. We do it. And it's not perfect. And, this game wasn't perfect. I think, we didn't have a very good second quarter, but, the outcome was never in doubt, and the focus was never in doubt. And it wasn't like we were out there, missing assignments, making bad plays. It was, you just feel how it's next play. Like they're just focused on the present, and they're exactly where we need to be, and know that if we focus on all these little steps, we'll get to where we want to get to in the end. And it's beautiful to watch, and it's something, again, that we can't take for granted when you watch all these teams like Miami. Again, Louisville is a good team, but Miami goes out and trips up. Teams are tripping up every week. Texas Tech trips up. We're not tripping up now. We got to get past that last hurdle at the end of the year, but before we could say we've kind of cured ourselves of that, but we really are just, the focus is incredible.
Absolutely. And you look at the rest of the schedule. They got a bye week this week. You head into November. Your next game is in November, which is crazy. So you have 5 November football games. Penn State, at Purdue, home for UCLA, home for Rutgers, at Michigan. So that's what's left on this schedule. This team is confident. They are this was about the time last year when Ryan Day kind of went in and I don't want to say took over, but like sat in with the defense after that Oregon game last year, and they started to figure things out. And whatever the defense did, they improved and got better and better every week. And then into the playoffs, even better. Even with our little hiccup last year against that team up north, the defense was still great. It was the offense that had the trouble. But like the playoffs, the defense was great. This season, the defense has been, even the Illinois game where you give up, and I have a miss. It's 34-16, but like even the game where you give up 16 points to Illinois, like a couple of those were garbage time scores, but like, they had to work for every point they had. So, this team is going somewhere special once again. And, it's led by the defense and the offense. We all know the great players that are on the offense. But just a couple game notes too here. I put like Julian saying, like, I mean, was this his, introduction to the Heisman conversation? I think it was. Carnell Tate. I mean, we talk so much about Jeremiah Smith and what he does, and rightfully so. But Carnell Tate is just literally, he might be the best hands catcher I've ever seen at the college level. And that's saying a lot with just the Ohio State receivers we've seen with Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison. Like you go down and name all the guys. I think this guy's right at the top of that list with like body control, keeping his feet in bounds, just going up. If the ball touches his hands, knock on wood, he is catching it. So, and we've talked about the defense. We're going to talk about it a little bit more. The only thing I put on my list for things we could clean up, it seems like the offensive line on the right side, right guard, right tackle, Daniels didn't have a great game at right tackle. And it's not like I went down and broke down the film, but you could just see it. Like they were getting beat on the right side. And I believe it's Tegra that's at right guard, and he was getting subbed in and out a lot in that game. So hopefully during this bye week, they can figure whatever is ailing the offensive line, the run game, and get that figured out, because that is, to me, the only weakness this team has right now, maybe outside of the kicking game, which hopefully we don't have to worry about too much, because either the offense and defense are both doing their jobs. But your thoughts on that, or any notes from this game?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I frankly, and I think a lot of folks were probably surprised, like how much we came out throwing the football and really never stopped. Whether that was just like, hey, that was what the game plan dictated, and that's what we kind of saw in Wisconsin's defense, or, maybe there was a little, all right, let's, like we had talked about, let's open it up a little bit, right? Let's let Julian drive a little faster in the Ferrari. Don't know, but it was great to see. And 36 for 42, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, what a phenomenal performance. And the crazy thing is Wisconsin really didn't play that bad on defense. Like we didn't have a lot of big plays. Like the first touchdown to Tate, which was an incredible catch, which we had a really good view of. I mean, that was a contested ball. It was well defended. A lot of plays that were fairly well defended. We had a lot of checkdowns and running backs to get some chunk yardage, but we didn't have any, 40, 50 yard bombs down the field that we hit. It was a methodical passing game where we basically, our short passing game was our run game, because we barely ran the ball. And when we did, like you said, it wasn't overly successful. So certainly something to clean up. But so I think now it's funny, because we've been clamoring about like, hey, we need to throw more, and now it's like, oh man, we threw and we didn't run enough. So maybe we're getting to that point where we can find that balance. But I think we were listening to a podcast and they were talking about balance. I mean, balance can be overrated sometimes, because like I just said, like a 5-yard pass, especially with these receivers, or a 7-yard out, is basically an extension of the running game. So you can achieve success throwing it when you have the personnel that we have, but you also got to be able to run it a little bit. And you got to be able to get your 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, and kind of, especially at a school like Ohio State, you got to be able to line up and get 2-3 yards when you need it. So that's something to, hopefully we can continue to build and improve in that area, especially as we get to, you look towards the Michigan game, when you're gonna need in that game to get short yardage on the ground, and that's where we've struggled. But the passing game was extraordinary, and Sayin just looked, just to see him live and the throws that he made, and every touchdown throw he made was just tremendous.
Yeah, He makes it look easy, which is saying something because we have seen great quarterbacks over the last few years for the Buckeyes, and he honestly might be at the top of that list by the time his time is done here in Columbus. So, real quick before we move on, just a real absolute tip of the hat to the Wisconsin fans. Though we were there, and I know they're down on their team, but man, what a great atmosphere! We were treated so well. We had somebody even give us an upgraded tickets for better seats, and it was just like everyone there was so great. Jump around. Somebody did tell me this is about like a 6 out of 10 on like the jump around, height meter. But I'm sure if it was a close game going into the fourth or whatever, but the fans I think knew what they were in store for, but still were great hosts. So tip of the cap to the Wisconsin fans there. So
yeah, it was a jump around and then a mass exodus, which they kind of said was probably going to happen. But echo what you said, and it's Madison. You hear a lot of there. If you look like, hey, what's the best atmospheres in the Big Ten, and Madison's usually near the top of the list. And to echo what you said, the town, the restaurant scene, the bar scene, the people, the stadium, the campus, you name it, check every single box. It was really awesome. And frankly, you just wish that, I wish it was a more competitive game and a more competitive situation. And I've, and coming from a couple of Browns fans, I have not seen a fan base as down on a team in a long, long time that I saw for this Wisconsin fan base, which is a shame, as we've talked about with Luke Fickell and why it hasn't worked out and how it hasn't worked out. But it feels like, I guess winning cures all, but it feels like that's reached the point of no return with Fickell. I can't imagine him hanging around past this season, although I think he did just get a vote of confidence, but he's got a lot of work to do to win back this fan base right now. That's really reeling.
Yeah. And the only thing I'll say negative about him is I felt like they played this game not to get blown out by 50.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I guess anybody out there that's coached some great teams, they've coached some bad teams, and sometimes it's not your year, but you want to still put your guys, girls, whoever in the best position to succeed. And I just felt like that was let's just take our whooping, get to I mean, they have the toughest schedule in the country. They still have Indiana, Oregon, and I think another ranked team in there somewhere. They've already played Alabama, they've already played Michigan, they've already played Ohio State. So this is an absolute brutal schedule. They won their first 2 games, and there's a good chance they're gonna lose their last 10. But to echo
what you said about the game plan, they attempted 15 passes in the game. They were 7 of 15 passing between the two quarterbacks for 49 yards, and they ran the ball 31 times. You would be hard-pressed to find a distribution like that in a game where you lose by 34 points. Usually you would expect to see 50 throws. So to your point, even as the game was kind of getting out of hand, they were still run it first down, run it second down, throw it third down, take your lumps, punt the ball. So I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. I think it was I think they would have liked to have scored a little bit, but what they didn't want to do was come out and lose 63-0.
Right.
So right. I guess to that note, mission accomplished. He also came up under Tressel, so I feel like some of that is he can't help himself with the conservative play calling. But yeah, if you're going to come out and try to win a game like that, you're going to do trick plays. You're going to pull out the stops. You're going to do the fake punt, not at the end of the third quarter, or the beginning of the fourth quarter, but you're going to do it earlier in the game. And it just felt like, there was never a moment where it was all right, we're going to really try to win this game. It was more just all right, we're just going to kind of.
Yeah, their longest yardage play of the game was a fake punt on 4th and 19 from their own goal line, which the punter had to break 2 tackles just to get the first down. But hats off to him. And again, once again, I loved Madison, had a great time up there, and hopefully we'll be back again. So, and Greg set the Papa Shot record, I think, at 2 separate bars there too. So I don't think anybody's knocking that down anytime soon. All right. Undefeated teams left. There's only 6 in all of FBS. So the Buckeyes, Indiana, Texas A&M, Georgia Tech, BYU, and Navy. So the midshipmen are in there too. So they've squeaked out a few, but those are the remaining undefeated teams left in college football. So just some unbelievable stuff. And real quick, again, to touch on just some of these statistics, I think we get spoiled as Buckeye fans with, going from, I know some people didn't love the JT Barrett experience toward the end, but what a great quarterback he was. So JT Barrett, going into Dwayne Haskins, going into, well, even you throw in, Cardell Jones in there too. So you got Cardell Jones, and then you go to Haskins, you go to Fields, you go to Stroud, Will Howard. We'll omit Kyle McCord, but even Kyle McCord didn't have a terrible year. It wasn't like he was awful. So, but Julian Sand, you put him right up there at the top of those guys, maybe like right along with Stroud or Fields. 156 of 195 on the season, 1,872 yards, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 80% exactly on the dot this season. And then against Wisconsin, I think it was, almost 86%, 36 of 42, 393, 4 touchdowns, and could have frankly had more if they wanted, but unbelievable performance. And it does help when you're throwing to guys like this. Jeremiah Smith, 49 for 602, 7 touchdowns through the air, 8 total, only averaging 12.3 yards per reception. But again, he is, he's kind of like was the big play guy last year, and he's kind of almost taken over the Emeka Ibuka role this year, with being the possession guy. Every now and then we'll break a big one, but Carnell Tate has taken over that big play role that he was last year. And granted, Jeremiah Smith garners a ton of attention, but he's still putting up some great numbers for his career. I like to show this every week or every couple weeks, but the stuff he is doing. He's only 80 receptions away from tying Emeka Ibuka's all-time record. He's only 981 yards away from Michael Jenkins' all-time record. He's only 13 touchdowns to tie Chris Olave's all-time record. These are all-timers at Ohio State, the guys that played 3-4 years, and he's not even halfway through his sophomore year. So he is just going to blow up some of these records. He is already 16th in all-time yardage at Ohio State, right behind Ted Ginn. He's literally less than 30 yards behind Ted Ginn.
That's insane.
You think about Ted Ginn, all the amazing highlights and stuff he did. It's Jeremiah Smith has played 23 games, and he's right behind him. So just some crazy stuff. And then his running mate there, Carnell Tate, 34, 587, 6 touchdowns, but his average 17.3 yards per reception. And again, he was kind of the big play guy in this game, 6 for 111, 2 touchdowns, and 18.5 yards per reception for the Buckeyes this past weekend. So just some unbelievable stuff out of the wide receivers. I do want to touch upon the running backs. Now, this is for the season, their totals. So Isaiah West got a lot of run in this game. Bo Jackson didn't look 100%. He was caught in the backfield a lot. But again, Wisconsin, you can say a lot of bad things about them. They do have a good front seven based on a lot of people's opinions and scouting and stuff like that. So they do have a good front seven, but this Ohio State run game is good. It's not great, but is it good enough to win the national championship?
I mean, right now it's I think right now I think that right now it's almost like the passing game is probably good enough to compensate for the running game to win the
Yeah,
national championship. But like I mentioned earlier, I just feel like you still have to be able to get yards on the ground and establish something on the ground, especially as you get into these big games and
yeah,
against tough defenses. So, it's I will say the running game is not good enough right now to carry the weight that it needs to carry on this team, which isn't that heavy of a weight. So
I
I'm
agree.
sure that's a lot of focus that's going into this bye week is running the football. But yeah, I think we have talented backs. I think you're right. Bowden looked like he was all there. I was actually surprised he got as much action as he did, especially as we took the bigger lead. But also there just wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of room there for any of the backs.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agreed. They got a lot of improvement to do, but again, we're kind of nitpicking
Yeah,
a little bit here. But this offense isn't fully to the level it was towards the playoff run and whatnot, but they are building to something, I think. And complementary football, I do think Ryan Day wants to run the ball a little bit more. I don't think he wants to throw it 40 times a game, but if you could run it 30 times and pass it 30 times, I think he'd be happy with that. But I did hear one of the Bucknuts guys, I think it was Dave Biddle, he said, Ryan Day, Ohio State, you have to assume when you go to Ann Arbor on November 29th, there's going to be rain, there's going to be snow, it's going to be wet, it's going to be gross. And I think that's a great thought to have, because you got to prepare for the worst and then hopefully you're ready. So whether it's a run game, whether it's figuring out what makes this team go at full go, that's what this team has to do. So yeah. So we'll see. Again, we're nitpicking. A team that's averaging over 5 yards a carry. Yeah. They're still getting the job done, but we're not doing it to the level we could be doing it. The right side of the offensive line could be fixed a little bit. We could, maybe improve our field goal kicking a little bit. I don't necessarily trust fielding. Our punting, hopefully we're not punting very much, but our punt game isn't great either. So those are things that are hoping, if we're noticing it, Ryan Day and company have noticed it. So so hopefully they're getting all that stuff taken care of and looked at. So, all right, let's go to our wow stats. And every week it's probably going to be the defense up until it's not. So if you look at these, look at the total points allowed: 41 total points allowed, 7, 0, 9, 6, 3, 16, and 0. That adds up to 41. You divide that out, I believe it's 5.86 or something like that. That is the fewest points allowed by a defense through 7 games in the past 25 season. Michigan in 2023 allowed 47. They won the national championship. Georgia's national championship season in 2021, they only allowed 46. They won it. In 2011, Alabama only allowed 49. They won it. And then in 2007, Ohio State allowed 46. They didn't win it, but they did play for the national championship in that crazy 2007 season. So, this defense is firing on all cylinders. They bend a little bit, but they don't break. And I don't mind giving up a few yards, but it feels like once the teams get in the red zone, they, it's still they have a huge hill to climb. So, So what's your thoughts on some of those numbers?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Let's hope that trend continues with the national titles with these defensive starts. But yeah, it's just what more can you really say? So just, and I'm sure, again, like you said, some of the little things, I'm sure they're working really hard. I think we talked about it last time with the way I think the team kind of structures the bye week is that week, kind of this week right now, is kind of we're fixing us. We're focused on us right now, and then starting Sunday, Saturday, we'll start focusing on Penn State. So
yeah,
I'm sure there'll be a lot that'll be cleaning up, and some new wrinkles and whatnot that may be getting installed, or just whatever it may be. It'd be just interesting. It's obviously interesting. It'd be just interesting to see what all they're figuring out. But this team is not sitting back and resting on any accomplishments, because frankly, if you ask Ryan Dave, and probably the fan base would agree, like, we haven't accomplished anything yet. We've done what we needed to do, but we haven't really accomplished anything yet. So there's still so much more to accomplish. You got 5 games in November, and yeah, some of them on paper shouldn't be that challenging, but November football is a different animal. You kind of touch it. Sometimes the weather gets weird. It's just teams that you're playing, like the UCLAs of the world. Not saying UCLA is going to come in here and win, but UCLA is a completely different team than they were a month ago. They pose different challenges. Teams grow, teams improve, teams find identities throughout the year. Yep. This is probably and should be when every team is at their best. So you should be seeing all these teams playing, having an identity established and playing the best ball that they've played all year. So you've got to go into November expecting every one of these games to bring their own set of challenges. But obviously the culmination is November 29th.
Absolutely. And I mean, just ask Miami how that went last week. You get a team's best shot when you're towards the top. Here's some of the last week's matchup. Georgia just goes on a 17-0 run, basically uses that to beat Ole Miss. Alabama, I still have a problem with that late Tennessee score not counting for some financial reasons, but we'll let that one slide. Vanderbilt handled LSU, which is really weird to see Vanderbilt in the top 10, which we'll talk about coming up soon. Notre Dame in the rain beat USC, even though, again, both of those teams made a lot of mistakes. We talked about Miami. Carson Beck picked off 4 times. Indiana handles their business. Texas A&M looks like the best team in the SEC right now. BYU wins that holy war, and Michigan, give them credit. They handled their business versus Washington. We all thought maybe Washington would take care of that game, but Michigan handled their business there. YSU, I talked about, beat Illinois State at their place 40-35. We don't really need to talk about Kent and Akron, but Mount Union, number 2 team in D3, handled their business, or will handle their business again this week. They were on a bye last week. So let's go ahead and let's do our Big Ten tiers for this week. I went with Halloween candy. So just coming up with a Halloween coming up here. So I went with Ohio State, clearly the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, the elite. It's always ranked number 1. If your kids go out and get some Halloween, or when you were a kid, that was like the number 1 thing on the list, unless you're, got a peanut butter allergy or something like that. Well, but that was the top of the list for me. Indiana, I went with Starburst, kind of like burst on the scene. They're excellent, both home and the road. Could also went with candy cigarettes for them too, with Signet there. Oregon, Skittles. USC, Sour Patch Kid. They're a little bit sweet, then they're sour, sweet again, and then sour again. Michigan, Snickers. I kind of like this one. Claims it satisfies better than anyone else. Very popular, very reliable, slightly smug about it. So that's a pretty good description for Michigan. And Iowa, I'm only going to go through a few of these. Iowa, the original Hershey bar. Boring but dependable, never flashy, slow to enjoy, but always finds a way to stick around in the stash. And then I made a misspelling, which someone on Facebook pointed out to me, but they said it made it even better. So Maryland, Butterfinger, starts off crispy and promising before quickly falling apart and sticking to your, it's supposed to be teeth, but I put teat in there the rest of the day, which makes it a little bit even more more funny there. And I put Wisconsin as the circus peanuts. They're the grossest of all the candy this particular Halloween, but those that love them will always defend the circus peanut. So even though that's probably about the grossest thing I can think of, cotton candy too, awful, awful. Or like maybe that weird neighbor down the street that makes you like wants you to bob for apples or gives you
I was thinking at this, something like Wisconsin or even Penn State would be like a toothbrush, the dentist or whatever doesn't even give you candy.
I should have put that for UCLA. Nothing. They're just getting ready for swimsuit season. They're not eating those empty calories. All right, moving on. Let's take a look at this week's AP poll and around college football. So Buckeyes obviously on a bye. Indiana hosts UCLA, so we'll see if UCLA can do anything. Indiana absolutely destroyed them in the Rose Bowl last year, so we'll see if UCLA has a little fight back for them. Texas A&M and LSU, Ole Miss at Oklahoma. That's one of the most interesting games of the weekend, in my opinion. BYU at Iowa State, Missouri at Vanderbilt, Cincinnati hosts Baylor, Illinois at Washington, and Arizona State hosting Houston. I didn't put obviously all the top games on there, but there's a handful of them. So any thoughts or any games that stick out to you, or what are you looking forward to this coming week?
It's a bit of a calm before the storm week. I'm interested in the Texas A&M LSU game because Brian Kelly's starting to come under fire now. This would be an elimination game for them if they lose. Texas A&M, it's tough to get through the mighty SEC. I know maybe it's a little overrated, but it is a tough conference. So like going to Tiger Stadium on Saturday night, being undefeated, that's a tough spot for them. We'll see what they're made of. That's always a tough place to play. Vanderbilt hosting game day will be kind of cool, and that'll be a big one for them against Missouri, two really good teams. That almost in a way is kind of an elimination game as well. So you're starting to see a lot of these SEC games, knowing that they're still going to get 5 or 6 teams, but which 5 or 6, some of these games are going to dictate that. Outside of that, I think it is kind of a down week. Like I said, it's like, sometimes those will bring surprises. Michigan goes to East Lansing, which Michigan State is not a good team at all, but we all know that game can get weird and certainly can get intense. So you never do know what to expect. I think that is a night game in East Lansing. So if there's any fight that the Spartans have, it'll come out in that game. But, outside of that, I would expect Indiana to handle their business against UCLA. UCLA has been a great story, but, I don't think the sort of Cinderella runs out there. But yeah, it's like Buckeyes are off. Obviously, we're getting into that. November starts next week, so this is kind of still some good games. But I think from here on out, after this week, there will be extremely good games every week.
Absolutely. And one game I didn't put on there this weekend, it's big in the G5 race, South Florida and Memphis. We've talked about South Florida before, but that should be a pretty big game for that potential G5 spot. And South Florida looks to be, in the, I hate to say this, makes me feel like an old man, but like the catbird seat right for that spot. So, they look to friggin' pounce on that spot. We'll see if they do. But real quick, for any Youngstown State fans that are also Buckeye fans, if you live in or near the area, Ohio State's on a bye. YSU's coming off a big win. Go support the Penguins this weekend. They host Murray State at home. It's be a good game to get out to. If you're a big Eddie George fan, Buckeye fan, and you don't want to go too far, you could drive up to Kent State and watch him and his Bowling Green Falcons play. And as I mentioned earlier, Mount Union hosts Ohio Northern. I'm sure a ton of people don't have that game circled on their schedule, but Mount Union, one of the elite football programs at any division in college football throughout the country. So that's another game you could get out to in Alliance, Ohio. So, all right, let's take a look real quick at what the playoffs would look like if they started right now. So if the playoffs started today, Ohio State, the number one team, would be taking on the winner of Ole Miss at Miami. That's a pretty cool first round game, hypothetically. The winner of Vanderbilt at Georgia Tech would be taking on the Indiana Hoosiers. How weird would it be to have a Vanderbilt Indiana quarterfinal? Just that would be wild. The winner of Georgia and South Florida would take on Alabama, and the winner of Oregon hosting BYU. We'll talk about a weird matchup that would be, but kind of cool. BYU at Oregon to play Texas A&M. So that's what it would look like if it stood today. We know that's not going to be the final results, but that's kind of a cool look at what it could be. And it's going to get weird. There's going to be some upsets. There's going to be some teams that, win some games they shouldn't or lose some games they shouldn't. And it's going to get mixed up. But, it looks to be a pretty clear top couple teams. But after that, it seems to be anybody's game. So
it would be really cool if if something like this held and you had like some combination of Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, BYU. You have your group of five that's going to be kind of a more obscure team, but that would just be neat from a playoff perspective to have some schools that you wouldn't expect to see in there, and with LSU kind of falling off and Notre Dame potentially, although I think they'll make their way in if they keep winning. But you kind of open the door for the Vanderbilts and the Georgia Techs, and obviously like Clemson falling out and things like that. So this is a good sneak preview of probably no matter where it lands, there's going to be some teams certainly that we didn't expect to see at the beginning of the year, but also just teams that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in general. Just names you wouldn't expect to see. So
for sure. And one thing I will say about Notre Dame is I think they're going to win out. And if they win out, they're going to be in at 10-2. And one of those teams they lost to was Miami, who in this is the current 8 seed. And the other team they lost to at home was Texas A&M, who they lost to on a 4th and 11 play. And if you go back to that 4th and 11 play where Texas A&M scored, a Notre Dame defensive lineman was held, complete obvious call, which would have put him back 10 more yards, 4th and 21. So not saying that will be taken into account, but maybe should be for Notre Dame. But I will tell you, I will bet just about anything that a 10-2 Notre Dame gets in the playoffs. So
especially the way things have fallen and will continue to fall. Because a lot of these teams are matching up against each other, and you're going to see a lot of losses add up.
If the only other result, than Brian Kelly losing all the rest of his games, that I would enjoy is if somehow they did make the playoffs in a 9-8 game, and they had to go to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame just destroyed.
That would be awesome.
That would be. So there's a lot of fun potential storylines that are out there. But that would be for me, and I'm sure for a lot of Notre Dame fans, that would be a hell of a fun one to watch. So we're not going to get into a Penn State breakdown, but I do just want to share the next matchup. So 7-0 Ohio State. Who would have thought Penn State would have been 3-4 coming into the season as the preseason number 2? But there were some fake posts out there that Ohio State's only a 3.5 point favorite. It's no, they're a 17.5 point favorite. As of some book lines I've seen, 47.5 is the total. We'll get into that matchup more next week, but just wanted to share that out with you guys because, Ohio State, I think they're going to obviously handle business there, but Penn State is still a very good team, a very talented team. And they hope we'll see if they have some pride, but they got to come into Columbus. It's a big noon game. But don't take that game lightly. Come in, handle your business, and and move on to the next week. So again, hopefully Ohio State's figuring out itself this week and then can focus on the Nittany Lions next week. But again, looking forward to a great weekend of college football. And I guess we'll wrap it up there. So any final thoughts, Greg, before we close out?
No, like I said, calm before the storm. We get to kind of relax a little bit this weekend, and then it's November. So it's exciting. Can't wait to see what the next 5 and hopefully 6 weeks, because hopefully we get into the Big Ten championship, what the next 6 weeks have in store leading into another sort of calm before the playoffs. So it's going to be a fun time here in Ohio. And, just again, we look forward to what is possible over these next 3 months.
And if you think about it, if Ohio State does make it as far as the Big Ten title game and, let's even just say to the semifinals, your season's not even half over right now. So there's a lot of season left to go for this Buckeye team. So we'll close it out there. So for Greg, I'm Justin. Appreciate you guys watching, listening, all that good stuff. Make sure to follow Youngstown Studio 330 Sports Show on all the social platforms. And you can watch any of these videos or any of our content on the YouTube page of Youngstown Studio. Again, we appreciate you guys watching. Everyone have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Thank you.